When you've decided to take a look at an episode that people have talked about for 10 years and analysed ad nauseum, it can be very difficult to find new things to say about the show's most recognisable work, Blink. This is a story that fills the requirement of a Dr. Light episode. Small scale, completely new cast of main characters, minimal involvement from the lead actors, as they're off filming the finale or whatever, and a story that works around it well, or struggles greatly before giving up and planting its head in the sand. And yes, I will definitely look at that special kind of bad who another time. Blink, like its predecessor, Human Nature, has its roots in the world of prose. The bones of a paradoxical narrative first appeared in the Doctor Who Annual 2006 as a short story, What I Did on My Christmas Holidays by Sally Sparrow. There are no monsters or threat, but there are scenes that are tweaked or repurposed for Blink. It's a neat little story with clever ideas, and like Dal, a great understanding of how a child sees the world. There's an even greater pull factor to me, as it features the Doctor as played by Christopher Eccleston. He whose run was exceptional, if all too brief. Before I continue, I just want to mention something from the promotional poster for the episode. The composition's fairly simple. You've got the angel, the house, and the Doctor on the screen. But there's also this toy clown in the background, like hidden in the darkness. I just find it really odd, because as far as I know, this doesn't come up in the episode. Was it like intentionally put there, or like did they put it in as a red herring that you think that it's going to be in it, but it's not? I don't know. It's just a bit odd. Thought I'd mention it. The next time trailer for Blink was amazing, and all the previews for it promised a real scary tale from old school horror for the audience of 2007. The hype for it as well grew so much that you'd imagine it beginning with one of the actors from the episode warning us that if we're of a nervous disposition, then we should probably turn off the TV. Sort of in the spirit of Edward Van Sloan's introduction to the 1931 Frankenstein. But the question of the review is not solely how effective a horror piece Blink is, but whether or not it holds up 10 years after its broadcast. Ergo, a good example of who, or a bad one. Like Human Nature, the pre-credits teaser is a strong one, doing well at drawing you in. The direction by Hetty MacDonald is of a high standard, and the use of lighting is styled well. It can be fun sometimes comparing the first time the show did this to the second time, but that's a video of its own. All great episodes set their tone right away. Genesis of the Daleks, Inferno, and Unearthly Child, and so on being the ones I think of at the top of my head. We know what we're in for. Apparently this scene was originally supposed to end with Sally's phone ringing, which plays some generic horror film music, though when I read about it first I imagined John Carpenter's Halloween or Tubular Bells playing, and then she answers it going into the title sequence. This sounds funny, but I get why it was axed. It would have killed the moment. It's much more intriguing to have the Doctor's message come from 1969 than to sacrifice a great scene for the sake of a gag. It's best left as a mind fuck on the same scale of John Smith waking up. The choice of location for the Westwood Drumlins house is wonderful. It's surreal to imagine that this location would be used again 10 years later for Knock Knock, though it was filmed in a different part of the house. Moving on, it's a pity that Carey Mulligan's name isn't added to the credits alongside Tennant and Adjuman, considering she is the one we follow through the largest chunk of the story. After the teaser, we are reintroduced to Sally Sparrow. For the first time to Kathy Nightingale, they sound like people who live on Bird Person's planet, and Larry Nightingale in the Nip. They may not be the most complex or interesting characters, but they're people. They have lives, embarrass each other, and Moffat's naturalistic dialogue, ergo, what real people say, elevates them from ciphers to characters with more than one dimension. We also see for the first time the Doctor's DVD message, which I'll return to, and fawn over how impressive it is. So already this episode has your interest because the Doctor's not around, but the character's presence is unmistakably there. We might be in the dark as to how he's gotten here at this point in time, but we all really want to find out. This episode also makes a jab at ITV, the BBC's rival, who, funnily enough, necessitated the creation of Doctor Who. I find this both a funny line and an intriguing one when you remember that most of the cast of modern Doctor Who have moved to ITV not long after their time has ended. Broadchurch. As they return to the house, Blink's non-linear progression really starts to come to the surface with the fate of Kathy Nightingale. When her grandson, a poor man's Daniel Craig, arrives at the door of the house just as she vanishes into Hull in 1920, note the angel looms over her like a sword of Damocles. The build-up works well, especially the split-second movement of our monster of the week. Mulligan's reaction to hearing this is also natural and heartbreaking. Blink deservedly has a reputation for being a shining example of the show in its 50-plus year run. However, like I said with Human Nature, just because it's great doesn't mean it's without fault, and Blink does show signs of weird moments the Moff would include during his run as showrunner. Firstly, Ben and Kathy fall in love, even though he stalks her and admits he's not going to stop following her. Played for laughs, yes, but out of context, isn't that really creepy? Stephen Moffat does this again in the 2011 Christmas special, and it's worse. Much, much worse. Secondly, I'm not sure how she'd know what time exactly to send her grandson to the house. Like, was there a scene that was cut out saying she had a photographic memory or something? Because, like, it doesn't seem like it. Yeah, that's the only thing I really don't get. Before leaving the house, Sally takes the TARDIS key. This will be important later on. After paying her respects with a funny line among the despondency, Sparrow goes to tell Larry, who has pants on this time, thank God. I'm impressed that the production team made up all the titles that you see in the DVD shop, and here we have the first meeting of Sally and the 10th Doctor. We also have the introduction of the Easter egg idea. By the way, if you have the DVD box set, you can watch the whole uninterrupted scene with Tennant and Adjuman. If you go to the scene selection and press up, if the title's highlighted, click OK, and be enjoyably unnerved. Here, the description timey-wimey is used for the first time. This is a phrase that got away from the protagonist that Moff later used ad nauseum before having the late wonderful actor Sir John Hurt take the piss out of it in the 50th anniversary special. Sally goes to the police based on the shop owner's ridicule of a television program where she meets Billy. He is attracted to Sally and is humorously awful. Shipton makes the mistake of blinking and meets the Doctor and Martha in 1969. In a case of tragic irony, just moments after meeting him during the same crap weather, Sally is phoned by an elderly dying Billy who passes on a 38-year-old message. This is a nicely done and quite sweet scene, directed and written well. Fast forwarding through the story, Sally discovers she owns all the DVDs and brings Larry along for the ride. Finally, the dialogue between past and present syncs up, and Ten's explanations make sense. And how he describes the angels? Chilling. Stephen Moffat previously utilised a trope where we focus on one thing before we realise the characters and us, the audience, are missing something. Then, boo! A scary weeping angel in the room. It may have worn thin by Series 6, Series 7, but here it's still new and effective. Murray Gold's music in Blink is excellent. On the commentary he mentions that the angels remind him of the maze monsters in The Shining, the novel, not the film. And the screechy theme he uses in the low orchestral mood pieces do wonders for the episode. A pity not all of it was released on the soundtrack. Blink goes full scary movie at the end, and it is quite tense stuff, with the light flickering and the two trying to reach the TARDIS. The angels' defeat, having the TARDIS dematerialise, forcing them to look at each other, is an intelligent twist, and a great resolution to the TARDIS crew's plight. I've not talked about the iconic monsters of Blink in this review because I was saving it for this part. The Weeping Angels are one of the greatest strengths of Blink, and even now I still think they're one of the best original monsters the Grand Moff ever devised. Part of that is down to how ambiguous they are. You don't know everything about them. Are they from this universe, another one? Can they talk? Do they have a planet? You don't know, and honestly, you don't need to know. Like the xenomorph and alien, you're better off not knowing, because it's much scarier when you're no closer to the answers than the next man. And this is Doctor Who, after all. And having them move off screen is both creepy and an ingenious cost-effective measure. Nothing new here, I know. Speaking of planet, showing us their homeworld would have been a really stupid idea in my mind. It would be like explaining the origins of the previously name-dropped alien in... Oh shit, that happened, I forgot. Time passes and Sally and Larry are together. It's nice they renamed the shop Sparrow Nightingale after Kathy, and the final piece of the puzzle comes together. Sally meets the Doctor before the events of this story and hands him the information he needs to help him get home when the time comes. I'm glad Stephen didn't go having Sally expecting here, as it's kind of a cliché. On the subject of things that didn't make the final cut, Blink has an alternate ending revealed to the fans by Stephen when the BBC Worldwide site commemorated Blink's 10th anniversary. Stephen Moffat explained that her line, "Sad is happy for D people," made her a slightly detached, melancholy girl in love with the past. He considered the possibility of having her be sent back in time. He writes, "Just after she meets the Doctor, she pops back into the shop, and big fright, there's an angel there. A moment later, Larry follows her in, and she's gone. For the first time he notices something about a painting on the wall. It's Sally in the distant past, and she's smiling and waving." I think this ending is a great idea, but I'm happy the way it finished on the show. The two get a happy ending or continued existence, but a montage of statues set to the Doctor's warning leaves us with that implication, that uneasy feeling there may be more angels out there. And it's the perfect conclusion to a work intended to distract for 45 minutes, but became an unexpected hit. It's a foregone conclusion, I'm well aware of that, but 10 years later, Blink still receives full marks from me. Happy anniversary.